Hello, and thank you for attending High Availability for IBM Power System I. There is no solution that is one size fits all. My name is Matt Stadler. I'm the president and founder of IT Solutions Group, been consulting in high availability since 2002. I became a subject matter expert on high availability and disaster recovery on the IBM Power System I in 2012. IT Solutions Group has clients in 38 states, Canada, Caribbean, and now Guam, with over 100 installs and counting. Pete Mayhew is our technical service consultant working primarily in high availability IBM Power HA. Pete is the only non-IBMer that rewrote the IBM Red Book, IBM Power HA System Error for I. The purpose of this session is to educate you so that you can make an intelligent decision on what high availability solution is best for you, your company, and your IBM System I. You notice it's all about you. And I'm bringing this up because I had a business partner come to me and said, we sell one product and one product only, and we sell it because we make the most amount of money on it. Ever since I've heard that comment, I've been reaching out to people and educating them to let them know that there's many options available to you out there, and hopefully this will help you determine what's the best solution for you. This is a high-level overview of both logical and hardware replication. We'll be discussing the inherent challenges with logical and hardware replication. We'll be discussing challenges associated with the implementations themselves, discussing the challenges associated with role swaps, switches, or failovers, help you identify the HA product suitable for your company, and educate you so that you can help make an intelligent decision on what's best for you, the customer. One of the things that we do is do an analysis of the customer environment. And we look at the skill set of the client themselves first, understand what your IT staff is capable of, and determine how much time you have and to support the product. We also look at geographical disbursement. Where is your second system going to reside? If you have a second system, can we put the system there to keep your costs down? If not, we need to put it into a co-location. And then understand what your current bandwidth is. Get an HA analysis report to support your bandwidth. Understand the bandwidth between the two sites. Understand if your bandwidth is scalable. And where do you want to perform your backups at? Some people like to perform them on their target machine. Some people are comfortable keeping them on their production machine. But this makes a difference in the decision process when you're purchasing high availability solutions. And does my source and target machine have near equal performance? The reason I mention that is people quite often want to take a Power 5 and upgrade to a Power 8, and they want to retain the investment of their Power 5. Well, you're paying maintenance and SWAMA on that Power 5. When you buy a Power 8 CBU, you get 3 years of maintenance with that. So the cost usually offsets that, and we go through analysis to help you determine the value of getting rid of your Power 5 and going with a Power 8 CBU during this process. We also offer a no-cost high availability and disaster recovery assessment for your IBM I. This is not only for new, but this is for existing HA clients as well. So if you're running a current product, maybe you're not happy with it, you've been running for years, there could be better solutions out there for your company today. And the times that we've done this, we find most times that there's a return on the customer's investment to go that route and save the company more money. So I was recently, just a quick analogy here, I was recently tasked with purchasing a trailer, a 4x4 trailer to haul our horses around. So I had to go out and buy a pickup truck. So I went to the Chevy dealer, and the Chevy dealer basically said, yep, you need to buy a Chevy truck, here it is. I went to the Ford dealer, and they said, yep, you need to buy a Ford truck, here's when you want. But if I could go to a dealer that offered both Chevy and Ford, I would then get a trusted advice on what truck is most suitable for me and not the dealer. Well, the same is true with high availability. Which HA solution is best for you? Well, same thing. If I talk to a logical replication consultant, they're going to tell me logical replication. If I talk to a hardware replication consultant, they're going to tell me hardware replication. But if I talk to a consultant that offers both, they're going to recommend what's best for me, because at the end of the day, they're still going to get the implementation, they're going to get the project. So I find it's more valuable to talk to a company that offers both so that they can help educate you on what's the best solution for you. As I travel around, I often ask the question, why haven't you implemented HA? And these are the typical responses I get. It's too expensive. I don't really need it. I don't have time for it. I don't understand it well enough. I can't decide on what product to use. I can't get it approved by upper management. And tape backup works just fine for us. Well, I think throughout this, you'll see that we're going to address each one of those topics here and give you ideas on how you can present management on looking closer at high availability for your IBM I. So tape backups work just fine for us. As I'm in a live presentation, I ask people how many people are doing backups. I usually get about 10% of the audience that asks that. And then I ask, well, how many people have actually tested their backups? And out of those 10% of the people, I usually get about 10% of them. So the point being, in a class of 50 to 100, I might see 1 or 2 or 3 people that raise their hand and they actually tested their backup procedures. You must test your backup because it's a condition. You'll never know the condition of your backups unless you do a successful restore. This particular client felt that backups were adequate for him, but the problem they did is their tape safe, their fireproof safe, was sitting right next to the AS400. Well, that was inside of this building. Fortunately for them, although their safe was fireproof, it wasn't waterproof. So all the water they put on this fire to get this fire put out actually filled up the safe and protected their tapes from the disaster. The problem was they then sent the tape out to the insurance company. The insurance company tried to recover the tape. Well, they snapped the tape in half. It happened to be snapped off right at the point where their production database was at. So throughout this, you're going to see a session handout. The session handout has a wealth of information on it. Lots of additional information, frequently asked questions. There's checklists on there, printouts, links to related articles, as you'll see throughout this presentation as well. Some terminology we want to talk about. The biggest one I like to talk about is recovery point objective, RPO. Maximum tolerable period of time which data can be lost. This is extremely serious. You must know where your database updates are coming from. Today we get transactions coming in from EDI, web, RF devices, warehouse personnel using scanners and RFID, and a lot of us have become a paperless society. Well, in the event of a disaster, can we reproduce those updates? Can our warehouse personnel go back through and rerun their forklift and replay their day so that they can re-update their database in the event of an outage? If you can't reproduce them, you need HA to preserve them. On the handout, you'll see a link to a blog on our website called RPO, I Get No Respect. And I mentioned this one because it was the most active blog I've ever written. We have people commenting from IBM, Dell, Microsoft, Oracle, and from around the world. Very active conversation on LinkedIn. So there are 2 types of backups. Logical replication, and the players here is Bugbusters, Maxava, Rocket Software, Shield Advanced Solutions, Traders, QuickEDD, and Vision Solutions. Logical replication typically uses IBM remote journaling. This is a fantastic way to transport data from one system to the other. It's extremely fast and extremely efficient. So what happens is your ERP updates, writes it out to a journal, out to the database, goes to a local journal receiver, and then that receiver sends it to a remote journal receiver. And the HA products, the logical replication products, sit on top of that receiver and harvest that information out of there and apply it to the target database. IBM Power HA System Mirror for I has 3 different flavors. GeoMirror, Metro mirror and global mirror. Geographic mirroring has limited to 2 nodes, a source and a target environment. It's typically done in a smaller environment with less than 4 terabytes of disk, and it typically uses internal disk and not external, although external disk can be used with geographic mirroring. Metro mirror and global mirror is up to 3 nodes and can only be used with internal or external disk, and typically is 4 terabytes or greater of data. The store-wide product line is in the mid-range, and the DS8000 storage systems are usually the enterprise class environments. So in order to understand how PowerHA works, we need to understand how IASPs and what an IASP is. Independent Auxiliary Storage Pool. So this is a representation of a system where we just divide up the disk, where a set number of disks, the minimum of 3 in sys-space, and then we have another set of disks that go into an independent auxiliary storage pool. That independent auxiliary storage pool is an actual device. So I do a work config status *dev *ASP to set the ASP group to vary it on. Or I have a command I can do set ASP group IASPHA, and I can then access that IASP set of disk. Or I could do a change job D, change my initial library ASP group to be IASPHA, and then as I log in the machine, I will automatically have access to libraries that are in that independent auxiliary storage pool. Another representation of it, we have sys-space on the top, which is again our QSys, QGPL, QUsersys type IBM libraries. User profiles are replicated in the admin domain. The IASP is where we put all of our data libraries at, and those will be replicated at a disk level from system A to system B. And again, as typically with internal disk was less than 4 terabytes. The size makes a difference on your bandwidth. Is if in the event of a crash and you have to resynchronize all your system there, all your database, how long is it going to take? And so that's where the 4 terabyte comes in, the number comes in at. So don't get hung up on that. It's just a kind of a line in the sand on where to start at. You definitely want to get a bandwidth analysis because PowerHA requires more bandwidth than logical replication. It is a complete HADR solution. It does offer off-site backup, so I can back up to my target system. It offers both synchronous and asynchronous mode. Synchronous is limited to 40 kilometers. Asynchronous mode gives me any distance I want whatsoever. And our final and last bullet down there talks about the identical throughput. Again, we want to have systems that have fairly similar performance so they can handle the updates coming from the production to the target system. PowerHA GeoMirror also offers an iHosting I environment, and this is great for the smaller customers that want to have a perfect DR solution, inexpensive, don't want to have the time to manage it or don't have the skills to manage it, but in the event of a disaster, I can fail over to my target machine. The key here is no backups. I cannot do any backups on my target machine. If you're okay with that, then this is a perfect solution for the small to medium customers. The 2-site HADR solution, this is now Metro Mirror GeoMirror. In this environment, in the event for high availability, I can move my applications over to my other server with Metro Mirror. But then if I have a site disaster, I can actually move on to my DR site using Global Mirror. So this is the 3-site node that Metro Mirror Global Mirror offers. So when comparing logical versus hardware replication, some of the advantages is I could read access on my target database, relatively simple. I can run queries. I can send one to many or many to one. I'm not limited on how many I can do, up to 254. Easier concurrent setup. I basically start tuning on a database. I save that database and restore it to my target system. I can have replication going up on a database relatively quickly. It does require less bandwidth to do logical replication, and I could do omits as well. And omits, I'll show a little bit more in a few screens coming up here. Disadvantage though, it is definitely requires more time to manage on a daily basis, 15 to 60 minutes a day. Some might say more. Some might say less, but it does require a daily babysitting service. And its initial cost is really significantly higher compared to PowerHA. The advantages of PowerHA is little or no time to manage. It's IBM supported. Initial cost is much lower. It's basically, I call it mirroring on steroids. You're mirroring a set of disks to another machine. There's no audits to be involved on it. It's as close to set it and forget it as you'll ever get. And again, it's incredibly inexpensive. Disadvantages, though, is I cannot omit object out of my IASP. I have to replicate everything that goes in there. I can't exclude anything out of that. And it does not replicate QGPL and QUser sys, at least not all objects. I mentioned a bandwidth analysis. You definitely want to get a bandwidth analysis, and this is a snapshot of one that we recently did. Is what this is showing is what is my utilization going to be on my internet connection to my remote site. As you can see, this customer is running throughout the day at 15 to 20 maybe, but then they have some huge spikes at 1800 and at 2200. Well, once we started getting further into this chart and looking at the performance chart behind the scenes, at 1800 they were running end of day, and so that was writing out a lot of updates on it that we had to replicate. The 2231 though was actually saving to a save file. Well, now that we're doing high availability, they no longer need to save that to a save file. This particular customer is doing backups on their target system, so that particular spike went away. There's nothing we could do about the month end or the day end process. That just happened to cause a little bit of a backlog there in the replication, but it got caught up very, very, very quickly. But these are the kind of charts that you want to look at and analyze before you ever implement a high availability solution on your system. Earlier I mentioned the PowerHA admin domain that supports sys-based, primarily QGPL, QUser sys, and QSys. You'll notice on here that star file is not on here though. And that's important because if you're using such as QCL source and QGPL, that file cannot be replicated with the admin domain. So you need to move that, and so you need to change some of your strategies, some of your processes in place, and move that out to another library. We typically like to create a library called QGPL HA or QGPL IASP that denote that that's a QGPL copy with the non-IBM stuff in there that replicates dynamically as we make changes to it. So this is something that you need to pay attention to in your design of your HA solution. Logical replication, again, out the gate is definitely much more expensive than hardware replication from the licensing standpoint itself. Over time, with its maintenance, it's much higher as well. And PowerHA used to be more expensive from a long-term perspective, primarily because of the bandwidth that it required. But now that bandwidth is coming down, we actually see that PowerHA over a long-term investment is a cheaper investment, a less expensive investment for the customer with PowerHA than it is going with logical replication. Doesn't mean that PowerHA is the right fit for everybody. Logical replication still has its place in life, and so keep that in mind. Dramatically lower costs. Years ago when we started doing this, an average HA implementation was about $300,000 with the second system and the product installed and everything else. They're now getting down, in today's standards, they're getting down to $70,000. So here's an example. We had a customer with a 5-year turnkey SLAMA maintenance, the whole shot on it was $70,000. That's $14,000 a year. That's $1,100 a month. Again, this is a turnkey Power 7 with PowerHA for IBM I, a Power 5 with 1 terabyte of disk, turnkey HA software implementation, education, the whole shot. So when you look at some of the things out there today, such as vaulting and that, this is a very cost-effective solution in today's world to do high availability. So there's no excuses anymore from it's too expensive environment with these kind of numbers that we can put projects together with. And then early on, back again in the 2000 era when we started doing implementations, it was usually the benchmark or the line in the sand was about a $300 million company or greater should be implementing HA. We're now seeing companies in the $30 million and lower implementing HA because of its affordability. So again, affordability has become fantastic in the IBM HA world. Capacity backup units, I mentioned earlier. It's really not worth paying maintenance on your older machine with the new IBM CBU program in place. Not new, but with the new program in place, we're getting excellent pricing from IBM on this stuff. And then, do you want to own the CBU? Where are you going to put it, local or remote location? You have additional capital expenses associated with that, probably cooling, UPS, generators, network equipment. So it's not just a project. You got to look at the total scope of the project to see what's all involved from a capital expense standpoint. Often you can go to a colo, and that becomes, instead of capital expenses, become an operational expense. And a lot of accounting people, CFOs of the world, like to do operational expenses these days. So we want you to be aware that there are co-locations as well that we can put your information into and make an operational expense. It's much more palatable for the CFOs of the world to absorb those costs. Here's another way that we can get money back to help fund this project. And these are business continuance insurance, BCI, and business interruption insurance, or BII. I would encourage you to find out who your insurance company is on your business and do a search on them with these acronyms out here, and you'll be surprised how much policy they have in place when you implement high availability. So insurance companies know HA reduces the business risk. So insurance premiums are often reduced when you prove that you have high availability. Lots of buildings can be replaced. Lots of data cannot be replaced. And they realize, again, that if you prove to them that you have a high availability and you can fail over and your data is off-site, you will get a reduction in your insurance premiums. So use your insurance premiums to fund your high availability project. I had a president one time telling me that if my building is gone, so is my business. This is so not true. Business and equipment can be replaced. I've seen it happen many times. Your data is priceless. Your data is your cash receivables, your customer list, your orders, your employee records, and critical information you need to rebuild your business. So you need to get a copy of this valuable asset off-site and safe. Cost of downtime. I'm not going to go through all these, but these are things that have been out on the charts, Gartner Group for many, many years. The problem with this is hard to put a number on these things. The one thing, though, I can help you with is service level agreements. If you're working with any of the big box stores or the government, you have SLAs in place that say you will get your product to their door at such and such a time. And there are hard numbers in there on what your SLA agreements are, and more importantly, what your penalties are if you don't meet that. So this is something you can help look at to get tangible numbers to help fuel your HA project as well. So let's look at logistics of an SLA. So I own a widget company, and I'm told I got to make a delivery to the distribution center, and I've got my window of opportunity of 8 o'clock a.m. to 11 o'clock. And the reason they have you do that is because then from there, once that order gets on there, it gives them time to get on other trucks and get out to the other distribution centers, right? It's called supply chain management. If your delivery misses that time frame, those trucks have gone on to other distribution centers without your product. And this is where the penalties start coming in at. If you're working with big box stores and your product is not sitting on a shelf because you missed that delivery time on it, you will get penalties for that delivery. So these are the things you need to look at to see other ways to find cost savings to fund your HA project. Business planning. Talk to the business stakeholders, the executives, talk to payroll, sales, distribution, AP, AR, human resources, and of course the IT department. And get a buy-in from everybody. Of course, the more people you talk to and educate on this whole process, the better buy-in you'll get from high availability. Some of the more challenging ones is to determine the cost of impact of the business of availability. What is your RPO? Can you reproduce your data? If my system goes down, what is the tolerable recovery time, or RTO, recovery time objective? I joke with customers and say, if I pull your plug on your AS400, how soon do you want me to plug it back in? And they say, now. They need high availability. It's, I don't care if it takes 24 hours, then they probably don't need high availability. But it kind of takes the context into a more fun environment and understand what the reality is of their system. And the more tangible numbers, again, is high availability or the impact of SLAs. There's a handout, a link to IBM Systems Magazine, which talks about being risk aware. This is a great article that helps you have the right terminology and discussions with C-level people on discussing your high availability projects. Okay, HA implementation team. Together, everyone accomplishes more. This is so true. Members who are responsible are the network administration, network, firewall, router. These people need to get new functions and new hardware, or maybe if it's just update to their code to make this happen to it. So I like to get them engaged first, because they typically need to do updates to their systems, to their firewalls, to allow the high availability to flow properly. And then of course IT, get the application team involved. The application team really knows what's happening at the database level, what needs to be replicated, what doesn't need to be replicated. So you definitely want to get the application team involved. And third-party partners, not only software vendors, but if you're working with FedEx or UPS or something like that, you have external servers that you need to communicate to. So you need to communicate with them as well and let them know what you're doing. HA Journal Performance is part of OS400. It's option 42. It allows you to turn on journal caching and also journal standby. These are both useful to use. You just need to know when to use them and how to use them. But they lessen the performance load of what journal protection adds to the system. So here's a customer that had a job that ran for 50 minutes. And we came in and implemented HA, and so we started journaling. And that same job at 50 minutes went to 2 hours and 10 minutes. Well, of course, my phone rang. We immediately went and turned on journal caching, and that job went right back down to 50 minutes again. So it's important to understand the effects of journaling and what's involved with caching. On our handout, there's a link to understanding the risk of data loss when you're journal caching. And we also have a blog on our website called IBM Power System My Journaling, to cache or not to cache. Again, when you're caching, you're vulnerable to data loss here. So you need to understand the ramifications here, and then you can determine whether the loss, whether you want to do journaling and the loss of data is greater by going that route. So planning for HA, what to replicate and what not to replicate. Again, you want to contact all the vendors, let them know what you're doing. They typically, instead of reinventing the wheel, talk to them first, and they'll provide you with a list of libraries that they suggest to replicate. List of directories. If they're using IFS, they'll tell you, yes, we're using these IFS directories. You want to make sure you replicate them. And what about DLO? DLO was really Office Vision, which was left behind from IBM many, many years ago. But some people still need to replicate that. So you need to determine, do I need to replicate DLO? BRMS is an IBM product, but yet there's a Q user BRMS that we do replicate. So there's some IBM products that we do and some IBM products that we don't want to replicate from one system to another. MQ being one of them. We typically want to replicate the data queues from system A to system B. And then the most important one you want to get is, do they have a omit list? And we'll talk a little bit more detail about the omit list here in a minute. So here's one from Keys Fox. This is a perfect list of what you're trying to look for. And the center paragraph there says, the key, the KF license data area located in KF Live should not be replicated. This data area contains license number for each specific computer. So this is serial number specific information they're telling you that they don't want you to replicate, because in the event that you do, you're going to be replicating it to another serial number and their product's not going to work. But if you put in the omit and you update the target machine with the serial number, with the license key associated with that serial number, the replication won't trump that file, and in the event of a failover, their product will work. So these are the kind of things that you're looking for when you're doing this. Help Systems, just a plug for them, they've actually started putting the file, the source and target license key in the same file. So therefore, when the product comes up and it says it looks for serial number, nope, it's not you. It goes to the next one. It says, yep, it's you, and it will start the product up. That's the kind of stuff that we're trying to encourage people to keep talking to their software vendors, and let's have a multi-file with the source and target serial numbers. So, what to replicate and what not to replicate. So systems do not replicate. This is kind of an unknown in most cases anyways. So if I update PTFs on my IBM I need to go to my target machine and update them as well. Application PTFs may need to be installed on both. Again, when you do PTF updates, you need to tell them that you're in a high availability environment. How does it handle replication to the target system? Or do I need to go apply PTFs on my target system? Creating an Apache server, you can replicate them. It will work very well. There are things within the INI files, though, that need to be changed. So I kind of like to create an HTTP server on my target machine whenever I create one on my production. If I don't replicate them, I like to create them manually on each system. Again, that's my preference. Talk to your consultant who's implementing it and see what's the best way to go there. System values, I'm going to pick on QStarter program. Your starter programs are different on your two machines, so you don't want to replicate those kind of system values. So you need to be careful of that, because we surely don't want our startup program on our production machine to run on our target machine as well. It causes havoc. Job schedule entries are the same thing. If I update a job schedule entry on my production machine and I've got a job that's running on a nightly basis, I do not want that job running on my target machine. So you need to look at how you're replicating the job schedule entries out there. Job queues do not replicate. The job queue themselves will, but the content do not. So if I have a job queue, a bunch of jobs sitting on a job queue that's going to kick off at 8, 10 o'clock at night, no replication product will replicate those over. There is one product out there called JQG for I, which is Job Queue Genie, will replicate the job queues as well, the contents of the job queue. So if you're a heavy batch environment, this is something you really want to take a look at. And then directory entries out there as well. Do they need to be replicated? Verify that they're being replicated and get them into the product. So I said systems do not replicate, but that's not totally true. IBM offered the hosting I for IBM Power HA, and it does populate the CPU machine. So the beauty of this is if I do an OS upgrade on my production machine and I host an I environment, it replicates that OS upgrade to my target machine. So if I do PTFs on my production machine, it replicates it to my target machine. The disadvantages of this, though, as we mentioned before, is I cannot do backups on my target machine. So this is a great DR solution for someone that wants up to the second near zero recovery point objective in the event of a disaster. So we do have a blog out there as well, iHosting I. IBM makes a killer combination to bring simplicity to the SMB market. So those people that say it's too complicated for me or I don't have the time for it on it, this is the perfect solution, an inexpensive solution, and rock solid to get you into a disaster recovery environment. So again, here's the image of it. So what we do is we create a network storage space in the IASP, and then we create our virtual IBM hosted partition into that IASP, and then everything gets replicated across. This is a full system replication. The only issue here is no backups on my target machine. So you run as you currently do today, your backups, your daily backups, your weekly, month-end backups on it. This is great for only in the event of a disaster. So some of the challenge associated with it is license keys. License keys expire. You don't get permanent keys for it. You didn't request them. So this is the most challenging administrative nightmare to do with implementing HA. The other one is getting the infrastructure. Clients could be statically assigned to an IP address, but yet when you fail over, the IP address of the new machine is different. I don't have the proper routes in place from a network perspective for my client to be able to route to that system. My DNS update, maybe I got to flush my DNS out of my lap from my PC so I can get my DNS to connect to that system. Or the firewall just purely doesn't have the routes in place to get there. So a quick overview of a failover. My production machine fails. My clients cannot connect to it anymore. I'm no longer replicating to it. I need to bring up my IP address on my target machine. I need to connect my users to that machine in the event of a failover. To do a 3-step successful control switch, I have my production machine, my source system. What I'm going to do is quiet or quiesce the machine. So I'm going to end my subsystems. I'm going to end my third-party subsystems, end my TCP interfaces, and my net servers, end the machine down to where it's quiet or quiesce. Before we actually do a switch, we want to take our time here, and we want to do a work journal attribute and look at the journals if we're doing logic of replication, and make sure that I see no entries happening in my journal receiver. If I'm using IBM Power HA, I would use work as job, IASP HA, and I would verify that I have no jobs in the IASP. If I have no jobs in the IASP, or my work journal A show no entries coming in there, then I can go to step 2. And step 2 is where I actually just tell the product to go ahead and switch roles. And that will take the source machine and make it the target, and make the original target and make it the source. So once I've executed that, my target machine is going to start coming up as my production machine, but I need to go through a process so it can assume the identity of the original source machine, such as starting up QInter, starting up TCP interfaces, starting up subsystems associated with my third-party products, starting up net server, whatever it takes to get my system back up and running in a target to assume the IP. In the failover, you don't do step 3, you just bring up the failover, and you would do the same process here to assume the IP, the identity of the original IT AS400. A little bit more challenging when you have customers with different locations totally. So here we got a customer sitting at 192.168.1.1, and the primary address of Taiwan in the event of a disaster is going to be 10.10.0.1. This is where the network people need to get involved, because they have the huge monumental task of getting all those clients pointing from the LA machine to the Taiwan system. LA goes away, I've got to connect my user to a different subnet. Always presents a challenge. So the first switch will fail, I guarantee it. So take your time, go slow, preserve your data, make sure the machine is quiesced and quiet. Again, take your time, do the work journal attributes, verify there's no updates happening in there. Do the work ASP job, IASPHA, make sure no users are accessing the disk or the IASP. At that point, you're ready to do a switch. And go ahead and switch the systems. And this is when you would move your infrastructure to the new system and point your user to that new IP address. So, common causes of a failover are, again, IBM license keys are expired, third-party license keys are expired or invalid. The omit list is not accurate in a logical replication. Maybe I didn't omit my file, so it trumped my target file with the production system serial number. My routing isn't in place for my users to be able to access that target system. Sometimes, again, I might have to reboot my PC to flush my DNS to get my new DNS entries out there. And again, firewall rules or firewall routes aren't in place properly. But again, there's a simulated role swap, so test the switches. This allows you to go through and test your keys on your products, on your license program products, in the event that when you have a real failover, you've tested your keys out there. So, any questions so far? Okay, I'm going to proceed on. Now that you've implemented, you need to manage and test your HA environment. So you always need to do data validation. Leverage all the tools provided by the vendors, whatever they might be. Run your audits. They have HTTP servers. Make sure the servers are up and running. Monitors or tablets, smartphones are now monitoring high availability situations. So there's many ways to analyze and audit your high availability implementation. And then you've always got a change management now. I got a new user. Do I want to replicate them? Most likely you're going to. But the key ones here is new applications. And how does this affect replication? If I'm going to install a new application and it's going to be production, I need to make sure it's being replicated to my target machine in the event of a failover. So you do have to put a change management process in place when you do that. I also encourage people to run queries on their source and target databases. Run year-to-date sales, inventory levels, whatever is meaningful to your company to test, get printouts and that to validate that your data is intact between the two sites. And again, simulated virtual role swap. This has become a painless process. Use it. It allows you to fail over your target machine, start up your applications and do some testing on it. It'll validate all your IBM keys and your third-party product keys are in place. And when you back out of that, it will retract any updates that you did and will start replication back up again. Again, it's painless. Use it. Often people think that high availability is set it and forget it. That's not the case at all. You need to come up with a habit of doing a semi-annual audit, reviewing what libraries are being replicated and what IFS is being replicated. There's all too often where I've seen a customer go into a failover and something's not working and they go, oh, I forgot we added that library to replication and it was a production library and they forgot about it. So that needs to be taken into account as well. General rule of thumb, if you do not conduct regular and sustained role swaps, you do not have high availability. Sustained role swaps is probably the key word there. Quite often when we do our testing, we come in on Saturday morning, the customer wants us to switch from one system to the other. They do a couple tests with their IT staff and they switch back the other way and they sign off on the project. That's not a sustained role swap. A sustained role swap is living on that target machine for X period of time, whether it be 24 hours, 48 hours, 7 days, 30 days, whatever it is, but you need to live on that machine for a period of time, and not just when you're in a controlled environment within IT. So test until it makes it easy. Here, this particular customer, we helped them script the process, and now they do it every 3 months. It's a very easy process to do. We scripted everything, does all the bulk of the work. It's really nothing more than starting the role swap script from the source machine. It's that simple. Again, a little bit of pain involved to get the script working and tested properly, but now they come in, any user can come in and execute a CL, and it role swaps the machines back and forth. Same thing with this customer, it's all scripted. We enjoy the success of role swap test results. This is a county in South Carolina. They now switch their machines on a normal basis on Sunday to do maintenance on their production machine. On Saturdays, to do normal maintenance on their production machine. It runs a county prison as well, so it needs to be up 24/7. They simply do a 10-minute switch. They bring the prison system up on their target machine while they do maintenance on their production. At the end of the day, they do a simple 10-minute switch back the other way. Test before it happens. So we never thought it would happen to us. It's an understatement. It will, and when it does, there's no time to lose. This particular hospital lost their system at 7 o'clock in the morning, had to fail over, and because they didn't do the adequate testing on it, they had some challenges to get through it. It wasn't perfect, but they did get their system over, and then switch back. So now they have implemented every 3 months they switch from the production machine on Friday night to the target, and then they switch back on Sunday night. So they do a sustained 2-day switch. I emphasize teamwork quite a bit. This particular customer could never do a switch in a standard 8-hour window. Is what happened here was their partner came in and would give them a run book on how to switch their system, but they never worked as a team. They never had meetings together to discuss it. We came in, we worked with them for 3 days, and they were able to execute their switch 8 times, and we got it down to 3 minutes. This is a huge accomplishment for them because they've never been able to do this in a standard window. This is a feat they've never been able to do. So again, it's a team effort when you're doing a high availability implementation. Okay, references matter. We always ask for references on a product, but we never ask for references on a consultants that'll be assigned to the project. This is where the tire hits the road. This is where it's all at. Your consultant, the one that's assigned to your project, is the one that's going to bring the entire project together. So we need to ask specifically the people that are going to be assigned to our project because they're a critical component of the project. Don't fall for the bait and switch. Get a savvy salesperson on the phone that's going to sell the product, and then they send somebody out that could be a rookie or maybe have 5 implementations under the belt. So get references. Don't fall for the bait and switch. Logical versus hardware replication in a review here. Make sure you're talking to a business partner that does support both logical and hardware replication. They could represent you the best and allow you to make an intelligent decision and advise you on what's the best solution for you as well. Always get a PowerHA bandwidth analysis if you decide to go with IBM PowerHA. Rochester has a tool to do that. It's about $1,000. IT Exclusive Group can do that during our free analysis for free for you. And always compare your cost on a 36-month bandwidth. Again, we're seeing the prices come down significantly, so it's not as much of an impact, but typically PowerHA can be a little bit more costly because of its requirements. And always engage the network staff as early as possible. They are an extremely critical component of the high availability implementation project. Contact all third-party vendors. License keys, the license costs. These are negotiable fees. Don't take the first price out of the gate. See if you can negotiate them down. Business continuance insurance. That's your silver bullet to getting some money back from your insurance company. Your insurance reduction in insurance premium can help offset the cost of your high availability. Get references on consultants. Make it a team effort. Document the system before you make any changes. We have that in our takeaway here. If you're working with journaling that, make sure you print all your journal attributes off on each system, on each journal, so you can document that. So again, there's many solutions available. Let ITSG educate you so you can make an intelligent decision on what solution is best for you. Again, we offer a no-cost, high-availability disaster recovery and assessment for your IBM I environment. And again, this is for new and existing HA customers. And down below is a link to the assessment page where you can fill out a form, and we will engage in that assessment for you. Any questions or any comments? Again, my name is Matt Stadler. I have a passion for HA. Feel free to give me a call. Here's my direct cell number, 847-962-7190. Or you can always email me at mstadler@itsolutions-group.com. Thank you for your time, and have a great day.